more local community level. But our guest also here today is Amy Sutton from the American Red Cross. And Amy, there's obviously a critical need, in spite of all of this, for families and individuals to be prepared as well, because you can't be everywhere at once. As much as we may try, we just can't do that. Amy, maybe we can start with just a little background on what the Red Cross is about, although we all know the name of the Red Cross, but why don't you give us a little background first?
Well, the Red Cross is the only nonprofit, volunteer-led organization whose sole mission it is to provide relief to disaster victims and to help communities prevent, prepare for, and respond to emergencies. So we also use volunteers, and we depend on partnerships. We partner with the Public Health Department, OEM, businesses, faith communities to help execute our mission in the community. So basically, Congress has also chartered us in 1905, seeing the value of these services for the United States, to provide these specific services in addition to our role with the military in terms of providing emergency 24-hour communications between military members and their families and helping them to get home in the event that there's an emergency where they're needed. So we have a chartered mission in addition to the fact that we are part of the international organization.
So such a broad scope of what the Red Cross is involved with.
What most people do not understand is that local chapters like the Greater Somerset County chapter are financially independent from the national organization. So we have to build the volunteer resources, the material resources. We have to be ready for any level of disaster that might hit the community. And so we do that a variety of different ways. Within emergency services, we have our response portion of that program, which means we're available 24/7. If there's any reason why a resident has to evacuate their home, we can provide a safe place to stay and a place to start to rebuild their life. We provide financial and mental and health services to get people on their feet. And that's if it's a fire, a gas leak or something like that, all the way up to the nor'easter we had last year where we were sheltering almost 1,900 people. So we went from 0 to 1,900 people registering at our shelters, 3,000 meals a day, and the only way we were able to do that was because we had volunteers and we had partnerships in the community to be able to do that.
And you just by mentioning going from here to here, in a matter of 24 hours. I mean, this is what emergencies are about, right? We're not planning for this. We're not, you know, waiting, counting down the hours. These come on quite suddenly, and in some cases even more sudden than the nor'easter or the flooding.
And there's risks that most people today have not seen. I mean, my chapter has been around since 1917. We experienced pandemic flu. We know it has happened. We know it will happen again. So for us, and for myself personally, I don't want people in my shelters if they don't have to be there. You know, if they need to be in a shelter, we will be there. We are responsible for sheltering in Somerset County. We have shelters throughout the community that we continue to monitor and make sure that they will be available in a disaster. But what we're really focused on is getting people ready and feeling responsible for their families, that they can take care of them, because in a major disaster, they might not be able to leave where they are. Rescuers might not be able to get to them. So we want people as prepared as possible.
Excellent. Well, you know, I think that's actually a really perfect segue for us. What we'll do is we're just going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, Amy's going to show us some of the items that the American Red Cross has available to help people really take that first step and get their families and their households prepared.
Hello, this is George Foreman. I trained every day of my career as a professional boxer. Now, we must all prepare. Each of us has a responsibility to help ourselves, our family, and our community in the event of a disaster. Call your American Red Cross chapter today or visit redcross.org to learn how to put together an emergency plan, an emergency kit. Call your local American Red Cross chapter today. Visit redcross.org. You can make a difference.
Amy, I see you've brought lots of great resources here, so we can really convey to viewers what some of these items really are that we need to be thinking about for Emergency Preparedness Month. So can you tell us what we have? Maybe we start on this side?
Well, you know, I was just saying that, you know, shelter situations are very difficult because basically when you come in with nothing and you're not prepared, you're going to get a bag of comfort kit items that might include things like shampoo and a hand towel, a toothbrush. So one of the things we encourage people to do is to get a preparedness backpack. And within this backpack, this is the 3-day adult backpack.
Okay.
And what you'll find in there are protein bars.
Great. Okay.
We'll find packaged water, ponchos, emergency blankets in case you're in a situation where you need warmth.
This is a blanket.
That is a blanket.
That's great.
It's
okay.
a blanket. What you see on this table is also a blanket you can purchase as well, but this is specifically for emergency situations where somebody is hypothermic and they need some warmth immediately.
Okay.
Flashlights, a first aid kit, batteries, a container for water. So everything that you would need to sustain yourself for a 3-day period of time. You don't have to purchase this. You can get this at your local chapter, you can get this at the national website, but you can make your own kit of things that you need because you might have somebody in your family that has a special need, you might have young children, and we train people on how to build their kits. So we come out and do presentations and train people how to do this.
Okay.
The other thing too is making sure you have a radio.
Right. Battery powered, of course.
Absolutely. Our families are diverse. So we have elderly, we have children potentially, we might be by ourselves, but we also might have pets. So we do a lot of work with pet first aid.
Okay.
There's companion manuals as well. A lot of what the Red Cross has to offer are tools and resources like first aid and preparedness, which is a reference guide for people to get. Other emergency resources like LED lighting.
Okay. You know, Amy, I'm just going to, you mentioned something very important about pets, and while it's critical for us to be thinking about our pets, I think we also have to remember that we need to make a plan for the pets because they may not be allowed in the shelter. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And we work with the local CART to make sure that they are providing shelters close to the shelters that we have, so residents in our shelters can actually access their pets. But if you don't come to a shelter, you still need a plan. Hotels do not necessarily allow pets in them. So they're just as important as our loved ones and our family members. So this is part of the preparedness up front, and then that might extend to your car. You know, so maybe you find yourself in an emergency. This is a wonderful tool that can go into your vehicle. It actually has instructions for first aid. Call, check, care is the training that we give people to protect themselves and the people that they've stopped to help. And then all the resources on how to provide first aid are in here as well. There's training also available through the Red Cross for not just first aid, but also for life-saving training. So we train between 10 and 11,000 people a year in Somerset County.
In Somerset County
alone?
In
Somerset County.
That's incredible.
And what we train them, we train from age 5 with hand washing, infection control, to youth, babysitters training, to if I'm watching other children, how am I safe, CPR, and other life-saving training and first aid.
Excellent.
So it's about getting a kit, making a plan, which we'll talk about in just a moment, and getting informed.
Amy, this is really valuable, and I think one of the things that you just mentioned that's so important is having this car kit is that, or something like this, obviously there are many resources for these, but emergencies are not predicted, right? That's by definition. It could be a snowstorm, it could be a flood, it could be any other sort of unexpected, unanticipated event, and being prepared allows you to be ready for those things when they do occur.
All too often I hear when you see a disaster, a major disaster on the news, people say, I never thought this could happen.
This would happen.
And I talk to people all the time and they think it's never going to happen to them, or they're never going to be in a situation where they might need these skills. So it's not just about disasters, it's about everyday emergencies that happen. We want people trained and prepared to help save lives.
Jim was mentioning some volunteer opportunities that community members can take part in through their local public health agencies. But I understand the Red Cross also has a critical need for volunteers.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
99% of our local chapter is volunteer. And so we're always recruiting people to the organization to support the various service delivery areas we have, but in particular in disaster. So community members can get training by becoming a disaster volunteer.
Excellent.
And they can decide to respond to local emergencies. They can be trained to respond to large-scale disasters in our local community, like the Nor'easter, where we were sheltering, or they can actually be trained to go out on national disasters. So, for example, we've deployed people to Iowa, the wildfires, and that's part of the training, is actually go out on a disaster operation. So they're able to do that.
And such a critical need. For 99% of your organization to be staffed by volunteers, I think we underestimate how critical that is and how much of a reliance that is.
Well, it's really the place where the community can come together to help neighbors and friends be ready and safe. And the other way they can participate is to donate blood. And one of the critical needs in New Jersey is blood.